Sunderland against Liverpool. It's the late game today, and the flags at the Stadium of Light will be at half-mast this afternoon in recognition of Hillsborough events, of course, and what's happened this week. And Phil Thompson, what's the mood in the city like at the moment after the astonishing revelations over what really did happen at Hillsborough?
Well, people have now realised of why the families couldn't let it go. That was for one. Everybody, it's took 23 years to have this, of what the families have always suspected, always had their ideas that there was things, that there was a cover-up. And I don't think any one of them, the 96 families, who thought that it would be as bad as what it was. It came that it happened before the game. It came that it happened during the game. And then afterwards, with all what went on, was just a massive, massive cock-up by people who should have a bit more respect. Do you know the people who've showed more respect have been the families? In all what they've done for carrying this fight on, they've showed the respect that they've not had. And these other people didn't deserve it, who have done it all. And we've had apologies galore coming out from people. Why, to God, has it took 23 years, Jeff? I cannot believe. Surely somebody has looked at this and gone, these people keep on going on. Why? Governments, different governments, over at this time, have not somebody there, maybe after a few years or whatever, said, let's have a little look. What have they going on? One of the mums had wanted 3 inquests because she believed her son was still alive after the 3:15. She knew because she had witnesses. Now, surely people in there with respect could have looked at this thing and could have said, let's just have a look at these files. Let's open these files. Wouldn't it took a genius, Jeff, to have a look and seeing what a cover-up this all took. And then there could be a proper inquest. I just hope now for the families. That's why there was no rejoicing, Jeff, because a lot of the families could have turned around and said, told you so, because they knew for this. And it's happened. And what those 96 died for was to make football a better place for us all, to go and watch it, to sit and follow our teams. People should always remember that, even these people who, when they're talking about safe standing places, it's not. There's been massive changes in our game, all the better for us. And these people who have been fighting that cause deserve the respect that they haven't had for 23 years.
Yeah. There'll be no rejoicing today at the Stadium of Light, but it will be very, very emotional for the Liverpool fans who
absolutely
go there. I think there's no question about that.
The Mail on Sunday, Jamie Carragher interview tells all on his career, says this may be his last season as a Liverpool player, but more importantly talks about Hillsborough and the children who left home and didn't return all those years ago, back in 1989. And Martin, that is where we should start. And it has been a difficult week for football because of the independent panel's findings. But has the conclusions brought any kind of closure or relief to the people who've been affected by the tragedy?
You'd have to ask them. And by the sounds of it, from what people have said, it doesn't actually bring closure, because you're never going to get closure from something like that. You don't just look at a report and go, oh, well, that's fair enough, that's why it all happened, and now we move on. One of the things that I found particularly interesting was the Football Association's apology, and I really do not understand why that has taken them 23 years. I mean, with the police, we know there's a cover-up going on. There are people behaving in a nefarious way to cover up for their own mistakes. But with the Football Association, they must have known they got it wrong. They must have known they got it wrong. That day, they must know they got it wrong. And for them to wait 23 years and for this to have to come out before they turn around and say, actually, our decision-making on that day may have or did cost lives. I just think you think of the many, many administrations that have passed through the Football Association in that time, and nobody has actually looked at this and had the decency to turn around and say, yes, we got this wrong as well. And even then, even when it's come now, it's come as a result of them being backed into the corner where the evidence is so incontrovertible. I mean, you know, Spurs versus Wolves in '81, there was another one even between the two games. They had 8 years to look at Hillsborough as a venue for these massive games, and to decide that it was failed, it was flawed, and they didn't do it because it's the fans. And increasing, the fans do not matter even now. On a I was talking to the chaps there, and you look at England's fixture list this season, and it's a silly thing. It's not a security thing. It's not going to cost anyone's lives, but Poland and Ukraine is worked out far more expensive than anyone would have envisaged, because the hotels were at a premium, the flights are long and everything like that. Where did we go before that? We went to Norway, the most expensive country in Europe. Who is playing? Next summer we're going to Brazil. What do they think these guys are made of money? Do they think the fans are made? No one actually sits there and looks at it from the perspective of a guy who is trying to watch football and trying to hold down a job and support a family, and think, well, we can't keep going to them and saying, give us more, give us more, give us more. That's a totally different issue to Hillsborough, but its root is in the same problem, which was no one thought of it from the fans' point of view.
No, sure. Jonathan, so much has changed in the intervening years, particularly stadiums. The Hillsborough campaign for justice, they wanted the truth, they've got the truth, or we believe we're almost there now, perhaps as close as we can get. What is justice, though, and is justice possible in a position, in a situation as grave as this?
Well, I think, as Martin said, closure is probably not possible for the bereaved. Stephen Gerrard said yesterday that it was a sort of week of mixed emotions on Merseyside, and I think he was touching on what you're talking about, because there was pride and there was happiness that the bereaved families and the people campaigning for the truth at Hillsborough had finally got some semblance of the truth coming out, and that the dead were being exonerated, and the disgraceful slur and the cover-up had been exposed. But it actually felt not like the end of something, but just a starting point. There was further pain caused by the revelations that came out in the panel, even though we suspected some of those things would come out. It still caused pain to see them in black and white. And I think what needs to happen now is a new inquest, perhaps prosecutions made against people involved in the cover-up. And I think only then do you start to see justice. But I don't think anything can heal 23 years of waiting to get to a point that we should have been at in 1989. And Martin makes a great point about the FA and their sort of shallow apology, which came far too late. The Taylor report was there in 1989, telling us about the mistakes that were made and about ground safety. And that should have been the starting point. Instead, It took all this time to get to where we needed to be. And the most harrowing detail I felt from the panel's report this week was that 41 people who died had the capacity to survive after the 3:15 cut-off point, which is the point where the ambulances could have got into the ground and actually start to save people. Now, can you just imagine the pain that causes, the further pain that causes the families, because they now need to know, whether their children or their loved ones were among those 41, that could have been saved. And as I say, this should just be the start of a process of getting towards justice. This isn't the end of anything.
On that point, I spoke to Dominic King, who's a colleague of mine who works on Merseyside for the Daily Mail last night, and he talked about relief in the city, but also the mood was very, very sombre. And you, Absolutely. Of course, you live in the area as well. Yeah. So what has it been like this week, based on the build-up to the findings, but then also after as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think a very short-lived relief on behalf of the families, and then further anger, more sombre feelings, a lot of sort of harrowing details coming out. I mean, the Liverpool Echo's done a fantastic job this week in really sort of, campaigning further on the issue. And Merseyside, it's an interesting place. I interviewed Leighton Baines this week. His father is a Liverpool fan. He was actually at Hillsborough. And the thing about Liverpool is, Leighton's an Evertonian, Dad's a Liverpool fan. He made the point, Liverpool, Merseyside's a village, but it means everybody knows everybody. And you wouldn't have to go very far in any conversation with anyone from the city to find that they knew somebody at Hillsborough or you know, a family member or a friend of a friend. So, you know, the feeling has actually been one of unity in terms of this is something that has affected everybody. But it's very much one that, you know, more has to happen now. As I say, there has to be an inquest, and this has to be followed through. It can't just be seen that, right, the panel's reported, let's move on.
Yeah,
The way that, sorry, just the way that football fans are perceived, just to come back to that point, you've only got to look at the fact that they're now saying that 41 could have been saved. But they didn't actually save them. What they were doing instead was testing people for alcohol, testing kids for alcohol, just to see if they could actually blame them in any way for contributing to their own deaths. And that sort of thing. And that was the whole perception of football fans. You can see it encapsulated in that nutshell there.